after multiplying the top equation by -1, the y's will cancel. It's going to give me negative 6x plus 7 equals x squared plus 16. So now what do we need to do? Get everything on one side equal to 0. So once we've added our two equations, or done a substitution, we should only have one variable left. And you can see that we only have x here and x squared there. So that's the whole goal. We want to just have one variable to work with so we can use the quadratic formula. But in order to do that, before we can decide a, b, and c, we have to have everything on one side equal to 0. Since my x squared is here, I'm going to leave that where it is, and it's positive. I'm okay with working with that way. I'm going to add 6x over, and I'm going to subtract 7 so that I get 0 on the left. So I'm going to add 6x here and there, and subtract 7 there and there. So now on the left, I just have 0. On the right, I have x squared. I'm going to put my x next. 6x plus, is that 9? 9. Okay. So now I'm ready to work a problem like number 2 from our assignment, or from our Bell work, which is using the quadratic formula. So we eliminated one variable by multiplying by a -1. Some cases we'll substitute to do that. Once we've eliminated one variable, then we get everything on one side equal to 0, and now we're ready to do our quadratic formula. So a is 1 because it's 1x squared, b is 6 because it's 6x, and c is 9. All right, so now we're ready to do the quadratic formula. I'm going to do that over on the left here. So opposite of b, so that's going to be -6 plus or minus b squared, so 6 squared, minus 4 times a times c over 2 times a. And which variable are we solving for here? X. It's whatever variable is right here. So sometimes when you're working these problems out, you'll eliminate the x possibly, and you'll have y squared, something y with a constant. So when you do the quadratic, you're actually solving for y, and then you'll go back and find x. But in this case, because our variable is x in this equation, that's what we're finding, the two x values, one or two x values. Okay. So continuing on here, we have a -6 plus or minus, we get 36 minus 36. Oh, yay, over 2. So 36 minus 36 is 0. So we just have, we don't need to worry about the plus or minus because there's 0 is not going to affect it. Whether we add 0 or subtract 0 doesn't change our answer. So we just get -6 over 2, which is -3. That's our only x value. So this was all x. So I know x is a -3 in my answer. And remember, we're talking about where, in this case, it's a line and a parabola intersect. So they can intersect nowhere, in no points. They can intersect in 1 point or 2 points. And it is just going to be 1 point in this case because we only got one x value. So how do we find the y value? So we take the x value that we got and we put it in either equation and to find y. I'm just going to use the top equation, which is 6x plus y equals a -16. And so x is a -3, so 6 times a -3 plus y equals -16. And that's a -18 plus y equals -16. So I'm going to add 18 to both sides. And y equals 2. So there is the point of intersection of those two figures. our y's aren't going to cancel because one's 1 and one's 2, correct? And if we multiply through by a -1, that's not going to help us. There are other things we could do. We could like multiply the top equation by a -2, so then the y's cancel, and that throws a whole bunch of stuff over here with that. I don't like that. So what I would suggest, what did some of you do? I guess who got this? What I just said? Multiply by -2. Okay, so did you solve for x here? All right, let's do that. Okay, so Logan's our justification that we don't want to multiply by -2 because it gave a big old mess. Okay, so what we're going to do here is on the second equation, I'm going to subtract 2y from both sides so that I get x equals 6 minus 2y. Okay, so now I'm going to plug that into the first equation. If I solved for a variable on one equation, I don't plug it back into that same equation. I go into the other equation and plug that information. So now my first equation is going to be rewritten as y minus 5 equals, where I have the x, what am I going to put in its place? 6 minus 2y. And then I have that minus 2, right? Okay, everybody all right with that step? Okay, so now I can do some simplifying before I FOIL. I have this y minus 5 on the left, and 6 minus 2 is 4 minus 2y squared on the right. Okay. Everybody all right with that? Now I go to FOIL. So I've got y minus 5. I'm not messing with that. I'm going to go 4 minus 2y times 4 minus 2y on the right. Left doesn't change. I do some multiplying on the right. So 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times a negative 2y, negative 8y. Negative 2y times 4, negative 8y. Negative 2y times a negative 2y, 4y squared. Bless you. So now I'm going to simplify on my right, and I have 16 minus 16y plus 4y squared. Okay, did we get rid of one of the variables? Yeah, we got rid of x, so all we have is y. So now we do what? Solve for y, but we have to get everything on one side equal to 0, and then identify a, b, and c, and then solve for y using quadratic formula. So since my y squared's over here, I'm going to subtract y and add 5. And then I'm going to rearrange the right side of my equation. So I'm going to subtract y, add 5. Subtract y, add 5. And that's going to give me 0. And then on the right, I'm going to put my y squared first. 4y squared minus 17y plus 21. So I'm going to identify a is 4, b is negative 17, and c is 21. Now I'm ready for quadratic formula. Remember, we're solving for y, so when we get our y values, we'll have to plug in to find x, if that happens. Okay, so quadratic formula, opposite of b, opposite of a negative 17, plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. So what is negative 17 squared minus 4 times 21? Negative 47. And guess what? We're done. We're finished. Because, bless you, because we have this negative under the radical, that means that the solution would be imaginary, and that means there's no point of intersection between this parabola and this line. So we would write no solution, or the solution set is empty. Either one of those is acceptable. Okay, so on 11 we have a circle and a line. So we could have 0, 1, or 2 points of intersection. Can't cancel the y's because this is a y squared and that's a y. Can't cancel the x's, same thing, x squared and x. So what I would do is look at this second equation, and it would very simply, I could add y to both sides and solve for x. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add y to each side here so that I get x equals y plus 6. And then right here where I see that x squared, I'm going to put y plus 6. So I'm going to rewrite my first equation. Y squared minus 26 equals a negative, and I'm going to put in parentheses because I have a quantity, y plus 6 squared. Everybody okay with that? All right, so now I need to FOIL the y plus 6. I'm going to leave the left side alone. Don't need to mess with that. I'm going to leave that negative alone for the time being. And I'm going to just write y plus 6 over here. Y plus 6. That's what I'm going to be multiplying and putting down there. So y times y is y squared. Y times 6 is 6y. 6 times y is another 6y. 6 times 6 is 36. Left stays the same. And we're going to simplify within our parentheses before we take that negative through. So that's y squared plus 12y plus 36. And then taking the negative through just changes all of those. So now we're to a point where we're just down to y variable, and we need to get everything on one side equal to 0 so that we can solve using the quadratic formula. And on this side, my y is positive, my y squared is positive. This side is negative. If I added y squared, it would move it to that side. So I'm going to move everything to the left so that my y squared stays positive, because I like positive, I don't know. So I'm going to add y squared there. I'm going to add 12y. There's nothing to add 12y to there. And I'm going to add 36. So on the right, I get a big 0. All those are gone. On the left, I have 2y squared, because I have y squared plus y squared. And then I added that sloppy 12y right there.